This is another example of working backwards. Now, both graphs are shown. F of x is the original graph. We do a bunch of transformations, and then we get g of x, the blue graph. What do we know? We know that we started with 2 points on f of x, started with point A and point B. A was at 0, 8. B was at 2, -8. Transformations happened, and the point A ends up at -2, 0, and the point B ends up at 0, -8. Now, unlike our example in the previous section, where we could see just how to go from one place to the next, this one's not as easy. So we have to use that technique that we looked at earlier to figure out first what were the stretches and compressions that happened. So recall, we did that by saying, let's look at the different horizontal changes. When we look at our original graph and you go from A to B, you go 2 to the right. So I'll just write that as a +2. And on our image graph, if you look at what happens from A prime to B prime, now you'd go from -2 to 0. Again, we're just looking at how the horizontal distance here changed from A prime to B prime. It's also 2 to the right. And so we can say, horizontally, we can write x by 1, but that means that nothing has changed for your x values. Secondly, if we look at vertical distances, if we look at A to B, we start up at 8 and we go all the way down to -8. Signs are important. That means we've gone down 16, so we'll show that as a -16. And when we look at A prime to B prime, so I look at the coordinate A prime here, I'm vertically going down 8. And so looking, how do I get from -16 to -8? My y values would have to get multiplied by 1/2. What does that tell us? That tells us that above here, our x values are getting multiplied by 1. You wouldn't have to write that one, because that's not going to change anything. And our y values are getting multiplied by 1/2. What's going to happen to the point 0, 8? It's going to become 0, 4. What's going to happen to 2, -8? It's going to become 2, -4. And so we figured out temporarily that we have a point here at 2, -4 and one here at 0, 4. Now that you've figured that out, can you figure out what's going to be above your last arrow? Graphically, we can see I need this point to go over this way and down, and this one to go over this way and down, and those translations are the same. How would I write this above here? How do I go from 0 to -2? Left or right? I need to go left. And I need to go left 2 units. How do I go from 4 to 0 or -4 to -8? I need to go down 4. So now we can write the equation of the blue graph in terms of f. Okay, notation-wise, what's our blue graph? Our blue graph is g of x. So g of x is equal to And in terms of f, now we can take the data that we have there and show it. Y by a half would be outside of my function. I don't have to show the x by 1 because it's not affecting anything. But I am going 2 to the left. That would be inside the function as x plus 2. And 4 down would be outside of the function as minus 4. So here we have our equation in terms of f. Make sure you're taking some time in the evenings to really look at the notation, to see if we've been using this notation in so far, the function notation and the explicit notation. Can you understand what's happening with them? Can you work with both of them? Question for practice on this one is number 9. So we have about 7 minutes left.